Hello and welcome to Culturama, where we are taking back tomorrow, today. And what we do on this show is that we are trying to reclaim the traditional spirit of Americana back into the United States. The one that we have lost so long ago with the induction of postmodernism, critical theory, the woke agenda, and also the introduction and induction of rather questionable and exotic cultures. We have lost that sense of traditional Americana, and what we're trying to do is to restore that back into the United States, and we're trying to reclaim the overall zeitgeist here, whether that be culturally, politically, or socially. And that's really the main intention of this show, is just to have these conversations, talk about specific topics that I just don't think most people ordinarily have in the social sphere of things. And so I'm trying to introduce that to you on this show. And on this show today, on today's second episode, I have a lot of interesting subject, and it's going to be really jam-packed, and there's a lot of topics to cover. And one of the main topics that I want to talk about today is J.D. Vance and the phenomenon of J.D. Vance in the United States and in America. Is he truly a hillbilly, or is he a subversive tech bro? Are we going to be talking about that? I'm also going to be talking about the major phenomenon of Vivek and also the major phenomenon of Groypers and Christian nationalists basically entering into the GOP and the conservative movement in the United States. And I want to see what that is, or I want to have the conversation as to what are we going to expect with that. I have a really interesting segment on offensive statistics today where we cover offensive statistics about how many Americans and what groups of religious people in the United States, particularly in Christianity, how many identify with Christian nationalism and how many even know what that is. I'm going to be covering that and many other topics. So I want you to stay tuned. And also, we have a really interesting interview coming up with one of my first guests. It is my first guest on the show. His name is Prester John Prester. He has a Substack publication that I'm going to be talking to you about, where he writes quite extensively about J.D. Vance as a fellow Midwesterner. And I wanted to get some of his takes on who J.D. Vance is. So we'll be talking about that here in a moment. I want you to stay tuned. We have a lot to cover. So just bear with me. We will be right back.
Well, here comes Daniela like Marilyn with a twist. She's got a master's degree and a style you can't resist. On Culturama, baby, we're shaking up the scene. So hit that like, make it click, you know what we mean. Like and subscribe, come on, don't delay. With Daniela at the helm, we're leading the way. It's Culturama, taking back tomorrow today.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the four olds. Old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So, your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah. Who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
Well, things haven't been so sweet for Ben & Jerry's after the company posted an anti-American tweet, a few of them, on the 4th of July. The ice cream makers declared the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land.
Well, someone should tell Target that, because they're now selling swimsuits with tuckums in the women's section of the store. And they even have a line just for kids.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Ben & Jerry's and ask them how they can live with themselves as they operate a multi-billion-dollar company on stolen land while declaring other people give up their so-called stolen land.
This is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means. We have "Glad You Came Out" and "I'm so happy that you're queer" in the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence.
Good news! Starbucks will offer its workers reimbursement of travel expenses related to accessing abortion and gender-affirming procedures.
Kyle Rittenhouse was seen wearing a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt, and they wanted to distance themselves from that individual. key employees at the company also were donating to Democrats. Hafer doubled down on throwing many in his base under the bus, describing them as racist and a repugnant group of people.
Hey, Liberty lovers, stop scrolling, because if you're tired of the same old news, then I've got just the wake-up call for you. I want to thank you for tuning in to Culturama, and I know that you're enjoying every minute of it. Join us at rumble.com/AP4Liberty. The Wake Up America show is Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. It's a great way to start your day. Coffee's optional, but waking up is mandatory. Remember, at Wake Up America, we'll keep you sharp, we'll keep you laughing, most of all, we'll keep you free. I'll see you in the morning.
Hello and welcome to this segment of Offensive Statistics, where we talk about what else other than statistics that we may find offensive. And on today's episode of Offensive Statistics, I wanted to open up on a subject that is one of the main foundational elements of this episode, and that is the induction of Christian nationalism and other religions being introduced within the GOP and the greater conservative movement in the United States. And on this statistic, I actually found earlier today, I was really interested in touching on because it is talking about Christian nationalism and the proliferation of it within other specific sects and groups within Christianity. And I keep hearing this talking point that especially among people within Generation Z specifically, Groypers, Catholics, the new avant-garde growing branch of the conservative movement in the United States. And I'm someone that is very much often online. So I've been hearing and noticing these movements or these developments being heralded towards Christian nationalism within Republicans, within the Republican group, within the conservative movement. And so I started to think, look, this is probably a growing movement and it's growing in popularity. And I wanted to kind of tackle that. But when I found this statistic today, it looked like that it is not so much the case in terms of its popularity. This could just be an echo chamber that I'm a part of and maybe you're a part of, viewer, as someone that is within perhaps online right-wing circles. For your average American, according to these statistics, it just may not be the case that Christian nationalism is as popular as what other right-wingers may think. So I wanted to kind of touch on this first. And as you can see here, this Ryan Burge, I believe this account name, he posts a lot of statistics related to a lot of different phenomena. But this one I wanted to talk about the religious group that is most likely to have heard about Christian nationalism. Let's take a look at this. Now, the first thing to come to my head is Catholics. I would think that within young people in the right-wing movement that are primarily Catholic, at least in my experience, are promoting this view. And I was wondering, perhaps that would be the group that would have been more aware of Christian nationalism. But according to this statistic, that is not the case. In the non-religious group, only 26% have heard of the term. Meanwhile, about 40% of Christians have never heard of the term, or maybe not even familiar with the concept of Christian nationalism. There it is right there. Now, that is really surprising, because it means a couple things. For one, it means that it seems like these leftists, because I hear a lot of progressives, I hear a lot of leftists say that, look, Republicans, conservatives they're the fascists, they're the theocrats that are wanting to introduce this new sector, this new religious bent, this faithful bent within politics and political ideology. And I've been hearing that for years, but it seems like as though that is just a fear-mongering talking point that's being shared by the left. Catholics in the gray, you can see in the gray, that's the percent of people that have not heard of the term. 41% of Catholic and non-evangelicals have not heard of the term Christian nationalist. What I also find interesting that it's actually Protestants, evangelical Protestants to be specific, are the ones that are the most favorable to Christian nationalism. I did find that very interesting. Now, I, as a Protestant myself, and we hear this a lot, right? You're probably well aware of, specifically this is occurring within Protestant denominations, the induction of LGBT flags. You see, like, I see it a lot. Where I live in a very liberal area. We have a lot of Lutheran churches too. It's always the Lutheran churches that have the LGBT flags in my experience. So, and I've been hearing this talking point a lot, right? It's the Protestant denominations that are heralding this new progressive, woke Christian agenda or ideology that's really inclusive, right? I've seen Episcopalians do the same thing. Episcopalians, I don't know, I guess they are technically Protestant. I consider them more of a high church, though, more so than other Protestant denominations, but that's a different conversation. But at any rate, it seems like Protestants are the ones that are more interested in this. So I've been hearing a lot of right-wing people state that, look, it is the Catholics. I've seen a lot of Generation Z people specifically point to me that we should retain the traditional Catholic Church, the traditional Catholic doctrine and methodology to worship if we want to stay away from this induction of LGBTQIA plus woke ideology being introduced within our major Christian denominations, within the Christian ideology at all. And so I've been hearing time and time again that we should remain Catholic in order to be kind of like immune to this progressive ideology. Maybe that's true. I don't know. But what it looks like to me is that so far, as long as Protestants are concerned, they're at least the ones that are most knowledgeable of and aware of Christian nationalism, and are not only just aware of it, but are favorable to it. Anyway, moving on. It seems that all others, I'm assuming are other religions. We have no religion here, so all others includes like Jews, Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, maybe even, are a little bit more. Okay, so it says like atheists and no religions. They're pretty informed, as you can see here. The no religion, the atheists and the agnostics, 57% are unfavorable to it and are fairly aware of it. That makes sense to me. They're going to be the ones that are the more aware, more educated, perhaps even. I hate to say it. Look, I'm a Christian myself. I don't like to say it, but they are going to be more well-informed. They're also going to be more liberal. So, liberal people typically are more educated. And I don't mean that I don't mean that in a good way nor in a bad way. I just mean that they're typically more, well-informed on topics. They're the ones that watch the news the most. Institutional news. So I'm not fairly surprised about that. It looks like all others also fairly unfavorable. That makes sense, obviously. I am interested, though, that all other religions, if you look at the somewhat favorable, it's 9%. That is very interesting. And I do want to also consider this. And I think this is another interesting conversation to be had about this statistic, is that if you look under the no religion and all other religions, you see that there's a percentage of people that are actually somewhat favorable to the idea of Christian nationalism. And I do want to explore that topic with you as to wondering why that would be. And because the implications of that are rather harsh. I mean, if we are going to have an actually Christian nationalist nation, which I have talked to individuals that do believe in that do want to impose something like that on the nation. And first of all, that's going to be extremely difficult to accomplish, obviously, and not for just the obvious reasons, but how are you going to ideologically test people whether or not they truly are a born-again believer or not? You know, it's all just going to be window dressing. You're just going to call yourself a Christian, but you're not really going to be a Christian. And you're still going to impose policies. It's really basically happening still today in the United States. We're not a theocracy, obviously, but we're still having people impose policies that could be considered as entirely non-Christian. Now, whether or not what you believe on abortion, that's a completely different philosophical discussion that I am not prepared to have on this show with you today, okay? But for instance, on the issue of abortion, right? We have a lot of Christians on either side of the scale, and we have had presidents, we have had administrations that come in as a Christian. Even Biden himself has come in as a Christian. He claims that he's a Christian, but yet his administration and people of his ilk still trying to impose on policies that allow for abortion, right? Similarly, even with Donald Trump's administration, even though Donald Trump is not actively pursuing it, he's kind of having a hands-off approach to it. And there's a lot of Christians that more fundamentalist in nature, in my opinion, but that take issue with that. So it will be really difficult to impose a Christian nationalist nation. But what I think is going on here with the no religious or the all other religions here is that they're not so much concerned about the ideological testing that would have to be involved with imposing a Christian nationalist nation, but they are more so interested with the cultural elements of it. And that's what I wanted to touch upon and kind of segue into my next story here, because there is a conversation to be had about the effect and the cultural and social impact and historical impacts even of Christianity and of the Christian culture more so than the actual religious or spiritual elements of it. And I think you and I intuitively know that. We understand that, look, many of our policymakers may say that they are Christian, but are they really Christian? Is Donald Trump actually a Christian? Like, let's be honest. Whether or not they are, I don't even think is a conversation. It's more so, what are the cultural implications of them taking up the mantle of Christianity? And is it really necessary for someone to really be a born-again Christ believer in order to impose practical and efficient policy? Or are we just having to bring up a title? Almost to show like, look, we believe in Western values that has been aligned with Christianity for this long. So I wanted to segue into my next section here about that. So I want you to bear with me here for a second. I'm going to pull it up right here. This story. So we have, does anyone know what Turning Point USA is? I would hope you know what Turning Point USA is. Turning Point USA, for those that don't know, it's basically like one of the largest national conservative organizations here in the United States. Charlie Kirk is a big part of it. He's basically the face of Turning Point USA. I used to work for Turning Point USA, so I have a lot of background and knowledge about how their departments work, what their employees are like, and the main ideologies that are promoted by the organization. But basically, what Turning Point USA was started off as kind of like an organization that gets young people involved in the conservative movement in order to do civic advocacy and in political advocacy. And they have starting college chapters, and now they're doing high school chapters. So it's just an organization that gets young people involved in the conservative movement. Their scale is about as comparable in terms of outreach and impact as much as the Daily Wire. And I'm sure everyone watching here today is pretty much familiar with Charlie Kirk. And so I found this clip the other day. Oh, hold on a second. There we go. I found this clip the other day, and I wanted to play it for you. And I want you to listen, because on this tour, it's called the Brainwash Tour, I believe it is. Charlie Kirk goes on a lot of tours where he goes to various college campuses. I think you guys have all seen the clips, right? He goes on a college campus. He has an individual come up. Well, gets a line of individuals, a line of students come up and basically ask him a question or sing him their praises, whatever it is. And he basically directly engages students. It's kind of similar to like what Steven Crowder did with the Change My Mind bit. Charlie Kirk does the same thing. He'll go on college campus, set up a table, engage the students. He also gets a venue and he engages the students there. And I don't remember where this took place. I don't remember where this took place, but in some of the tours with his newest Brainwash tour, what college this was in, but he had Vivek Ramaswamy on the stage with him. And this is what happened. I'm just going to play it for you. So let's see what he says, okay?
Hi, Mr. Ramaswamy. Thanks for coming to our campus here. I've got a couple of observations that I want to make, and then I was wondering if you would respond to them. So the first one is that throughout the course of the lecture, you talked an awful lot about God and faith, and there were some men that come up here and they asked you about your Hindu religion, but my suspicion is if they didn't mention that, you would have omitted who that God was throughout the course of the entire lecture, and most of the people in this room here would leave thinking you were talking about the only true God, Jesus Christ. And God has a name, and Hinduism is a wicked pagan religion, and it's completely incompatible with America. Most everyone in this entire room is a Christian. They believe in Jesus Christ, and you've attempted to create this parallel, however tenuously between.
I wonder if Vivek is at a Christian college. I wonder if that's why he said everyone in this room happens to share the same faith. I'm going to play back and listen to that part again.
And Hinduism is a wicked pagan religion, and it's completely incompatible with America. Most everyone in this entire room is a Christian. They believe in Jesus Christ, and you've attempted to create this parallel, however tenuously between Christian principles, Christian moral principles, and these Hindu values. And you look in sacred scripture and you see that all the gods of the Gentiles are devils, and there's only one name under heaven that can give you salvation. So my big question is, and you've talked about being forthright and transparent, my suspicion is that you would have omitted who that God was when you were speaking here tonight, had you not explicitly been asked about Hinduism. So my challenge, I guess, to you going forward would be to say who this God is. Is it Wahaguru, the one that was blasphemously prayed to at the RNC? Is it one of these other Hindu
Wahaguru
deities?
is a Sikh deity, actually, not Hindu. There is some relation there, but regardless, let's continue.
Is it our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ? So that's my question and challenge to you going forward.
Yeah, it's okay. I've had a lot harder challenges than this one, so don't pat yourself on the back too hard there. I don't want you to sprain your back with that one.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh, he's getting testy here.
I don't want anyone going home with a back sprain for that. So let me just level with you, man. You run for U.S. president at the age of 37 as somebody who's been in business, who's actually the easiest thing to call myself some Vic Ramsey and pretend to be a Christian. Got other people on that debate stage last time who shortened their names and called themselves to be a Christian too. I'm man up and tell you who I am, and believe me, your suspicion is off base. Listen to any number of the campaign speeches I gave, over thousands of them over the course of the last year. So we can take the disingenuous accusation off the table, but level with what I do think is an interesting...
Forthcoming with that, you did not volunteer that information. It had to be pried out.
You
never volunteered that information.
So
you mentioned God.
That's actually just...
I don't even think that's true, honestly.
So let me know when you're done, and I can address your question. Good. So watch about the last presidential campaign of the last year, and you apparently have had your head stuck in the sand, where it need not be belong. Now, what I think we need more of in our American politic is less of questioning the motivations of what somebody is and get to the content of where there's an actual difference of opinion. So the question of whether or not somebody of a non-Christian faith can embody and lead the United States of America at any meaningful level is an open question. Thomas Jefferson is on the other side of this question from you. Thomas Jefferson was not...
See, this is where I think Vivek falls into a trap, unfortunately. Now, I like Thomas Jefferson. I love Thomas Jefferson, actually. As much as you do, most likely, if you're watching the stream. But he doesn't know. As soon as he said Thomas Jefferson, I kind of cringed a little because I know the kind of guy he's engaging with right now. This guy's a groiper. I'm just going to be honest with you. This guy watches Nick Fuentes on cozy.tv or whatever that is. every night that Nick streams. This guy's a groper, let's be real. So, and they don't like Thomas Jefferson. People like this do not like Thomas Jefferson. So when he invoked Thomas Jefferson, I kind of like, okay, he doesn't know his audience. He doesn't know the news zeitgeist of the right wing, at least within younger generations. Regardless, I do appreciate an aspect that he did bring it up because it is a necessary conversation to be had. We still need to stick to the principles of the Constitution that were forwarded by people like Thomas Jefferson and his ideals. So it kind of goes both ways here, but regardless, by the way, this tweet, Vivek Ramaswamy gets graped. Graped is basically what happens when a graper engages with an individual, but regardless, it doesn't even mean anything. It's not groiped. But anyway, I don't think he's aware of his audience, which is kind of why he fell into this trap. Thankfully, he doesn't let this individual engage, really continue any further, but I will get his answer out here in a second in complete form. So let's just listen to what he has to say here. He does get a little emotional, but understandably so.
Not a traditional Christian. Do you know what the Jefferson Bible is? Exactly. Thomas Jefferson is a deist.
He's an enemy of Christianity.
So this is where
he's an enemy of Christianity. These people don't even want to basically accept the traditional view that Americans have had all this time for the last couple generations, is that regardless of the religious inclinations of the founding fathers, they were still the founding fathers that shaped the ideals, the values, and really the identity of this country, of this nation, not just politically or in terms of policy, but also our national identity as far as society is concerned, as far as culture is concerned. And Vivek doesn't quite understand that. These people don't want to accept that.
We disagree, right? Is, as you heard, if you believe Thomas Jefferson is an enemy of Christianity because he is a deist, which is you just bring the microphone so you can confirm that.
But
yes,
you're
is what he
running
said.
for politics in America.
Right.
And the purpose of politics is the temporal good here on earth. Okay, we're talking about good, and that's an objective thing. So we need laws that are going to govern society.
So you and I have a different point of view on this, and I think that the only point I would make to those
different
who
point
are,
of view
who are
on
listening
this
is students, and I'm glad you're stepping up and asking a challenging question. I would advise you to next time leave the disingenuous accusations of motivation to one side, because there's a more interesting exchange for us to have.
Really disingenuous.
If you believe that Thomas Jefferson as a deist is somebody who would have been unqualified to be U.S. president, then I guess you and I see the future of the United States of America differently. It so happens that he was the person who signed this document called the Declaration of Independence, which is the greatest mission statement known to a country in the history of mankind, without which the United States of America would not exist. He was the third U.S. president who signed the Lewis and Clark expeditions, without which we literally wouldn't have the United States of America. So
True.
if you view him as
Very
some
true.
type of deviant who should have never been in the U.S. presidency, that's a permissible point of view. It's just not one that I share. And my view is very similar to that of Thomas Jefferson, is that it's the commitment to the Constitution that matters whether or not you lead the country.
There you go.
The beauty of our nation is that we're able to have different points of view and earnestly engage in an open exchange. And now I come down on Thomas Jefferson's side of it, and if you're on a different side of it, the beauty of this country is we'll let you do that. So thank you, man, for asking the question.
Okay, I am reaching my 10-minute mark here, but I do want to reiterate this point, and this is what I tweeted when I saw this video, because it did kind of spark something in me when I watched it. I appreciate Vivek's answer here, but what really I didn't understand, and I wish this would have happened a little differently, because it does open up a better conversation here. I wish this guy, the groiper, the younger guy here, Catholic, maybe he's not a groiper necessarily. I'm willing to put money on the table that he is, but I wish he would have asked this question to Charlie Kirk, actually, because what is going on with Charlie Kirk's rhetoric? And I don't have videos right now pulled up for this. I should do it perhaps in the next few segments. I can find some clips. But if you've been paying attention to Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, as an organization as a whole, they have been subtly pushing the Christian nationalist narrative. Charlie Kirk has been introducing concepts and ideas toward that basically further and towards the idea of Christian nationalism. He invokes Christianity, he invokes the Bible, he invokes Jesus Christ, he invokes the necessity of Christianity to be retained in American culture for Western values, Western supremacy, for American supremacy. He always been invoking that lately now than what Turning Point has been doing in its initial stages of development back in 2012, 2013 is whenever it launched. When Turning Point started, it was more of a libertarian organization. It is becoming, and Charlie Kirk's smart. He sees that the Overton window is shifting more right. And he's an opportunist as well. He's taking that as an opportunity, so he's forwarding his religious views. And I've been noticing this, and maybe I can find some more clips later for this. And I've seen this in the clips where he is on college campuses also talking about this, is that he references his faith a lot. And he references the importance of the faith, especially when he's approached with the conversation of abortion and other issues. But he references his faith a lot. And Charlie Kirk in Turning Point USA is one of the main elements of shifting the Overton window, because we are in the middle of a culture war. I don't know if you guys have noticed. Maybe you're sarcastic about it or cynical about it, but we are in the midst of a culture war. And we have these large right-wing agencies, organizations, and even lobbies like Turning Point USA, Daily Wire, and so forth, pushing that narrative. And so this is basically, and what I've written here, this is basically the audience that they are currying for favor. Now, in all likelihood, this guy probably hates Charlie Kirk, and he probably likes Nick Fuentes more. I don't know for certain. I could be wrong. But what I think is going on here, and what Charlie and Turning Point USA have to contend with, is that these are the people that they are currying the favor of. These religious, Catholic, Christian fanatics, if you want to call him. I honestly think his question was posed in good faith, actually. I think this guy's asking a genuine question. Look, if you're an organization, because again, this is a Turning Point tour. I want to remind you, this is a Turning Point tour that Vivek is on with. He's asking an honest question. Look, if you're going to be an organization that promotes these Christian values so often, why do you have a man on stage that is a Hindu? How do his values align with ours? And I don't have a problem with the fact that Vivek Ramaswamy is a Hindu. I don't care. If your policies work, they work. If you contribute to society in positive ways, I don't really care, but you do have to emulate some Western values in doing so, I believe, which Vivek does quite well. But what I'm curious of, and again, I wish he asked this question more to Charlie, because I don't think Vivek has any real part in this as much as Charlie, but it's organizations and people like Charlie that are forwarding these subversive Christian nationalist elements in the right-wing movement. And that's why the Overton window is shifting. And that's the audience you're going to have. And so my question would have been to Charlie is, look, if you're going to promote these views, why are you bringing people on stage with you like Vivek Ramaswamy? If you believe in the necessity of cultural Christianity. And also, Charlie Kirk is a man of faith. He says that he truly believes Christianity. He truly believes in Jesus Christ, and, God bless him for it. God bless him for speaking what he thinks is true. But if he's going to do that, is he actually going to apply himself to his faith and apply himself in, what should I say, in a more legitimate way? Because if he is, and maybe I have just a legalist eye for this, but if Charlie Kirk truly is a Christian and he wants to promote Christian values in the United States, why does he have people like Vivek on? He has to contend with that question. And so again, I'm sad that this question was asked of Vivek, because Vivek really had no. This is more of a question for people like Charlie. These people are actively changing and shifting the Overton window and changing the face of the right-wing movement. But I'm not going to read my tweet off to you. That's a little boring. I'm going to be right back. I will be having a guest on today. He is going to be talking with us. He has a Substack. It's called John Prester's Revenge. I will be talking to him about the Midwest, as a perspective as a Midwesterner, what he thinks of J.D. Vance. I'm going to be talking about J.D. Vance these next few segments and the phenomenon of J.D. Vance. I want you to tune in with that for that first interview. I think you will very much enjoy it. Also, I forgot to plug my stuff before the first commercial break. So I do want to say, please follow Culturama on Locals on the 4libertynetwork.com. You can also donate to us if you want to support the show on there as well. It's on the 4libertynetwork.com on Locals. Buy our merchandise as well. It is located on, or it can be found rather, on the 4libertyshop.com as well. We have mugs. We have quality Adidas sweatshirts with the Culturama logo. We have a pillow, a beanie. I think you're going to find a lot of cool stuff on there, and we're going to have more merchandise on there soon. Again, it is the 4libertyshop.com. I'm going to be putting a little a little panel here, a little scene on here with that link there. You can find it on. And also you can text us if you want me to read your texts. It is 573-416-0635. Again, 573-416-0635. That is the text line if you want to text the show. I will be right back. Please tune in for that interview. The interview will be happening in less than 30 minutes. So less than 30 minutes, we'll be having the interview. Text the show 573-416-0635. I will be right back. You just stay put right there.
The elephants marching with red in the air, handshakes and smiles showing strength everywhere. Trump leads a charge with promises bold. The new era shines, or so we've been told. Donkeys are hiding, feeling the blues as the red, white, and blue take over the news. It's a brand new day. The GOP's in play, waving flags high as they dance and sway. Democrats hush, for change is here as the trumpets played loud and clear. Decades have passed with the same old song. Now they say it's time to move along. Trump's in the spotlight with his charismatic charm, bringing the spotlight, raising the alarm. Elephants leading with the banner unfurled, the grand old vision shaping the world. It's a brand new day. The GOP's in play, waving flags high as they dance and sway. Democrats hush, for change is here as the trumpets play loud and clear. Together they march side by side with a push for change, nothing to hide. Red, white, and blue, it's a bold new year as the trumpets play loud and clear. It's a brand new day, the GOP's in play, waving flags high as they dance and sway. Democrats hush, for change is here as the trumpets play loud and clear.
In the heart they gather strong, pushing back the lefty's throng. With the red banner held high, marching forward through the night. Promises of old will keep as the donkeys start to weep. Stars and stripes forever sway. In the land of the brave we stay. We've got the power now in the heart of every town. We've got the power now. The Reds are going down.
With a flagpole planted firm,
Golden dreams that won't decay,
marching proudly through the day. In the eagles.
Okay, I am back. I am a little behind schedule. I kind of went off on a tangent in my last discussion on Vivek Ramaswamy and the Graper, or alleged Graper, Charlie Kirk, and so forth. I do want to jump in the topic of J.D. Vance, because J.D. Vance is a growing phenomenon here in the... sorry about that. This is just a second recording, the second stream, everyone. Bear with me. J.D. Vance is a growing phenomenon here in the United States. And he is growing in massive popularity, but I wanted to kind of analyze the phenomenon with you together, because I didn't really know about... Moment of disclosure here. I did not know that much about J.D. Vance ever since his run for vice president with Donald Trump. And I was actually quite interested. I looked into him. I wrote a few articles about him, actually, as well, on my Substack. and about the J.D. Vance phenomenon. And he really was brought into popularity due to his book, Hillbilly Elegy, which I think is, and I think everyone agrees with me when I say that that's primarily why Donald Trump chose him to be the VP, because really he is a beautiful candidate for VP. He's younger, he's a millennial. He also does have experience in Silicon Valley, and he's tuned in to this kind of like alternative voice that, you know, besides the populist Midwesterner deindustrialized America, which he also is a part of, he also has a different perspective on it. You know, he is someone that worked up the ranks. He went into Ivy League school. He worked in Silicon Valley or had connections with people that also worked in Silicon Valley. So J.D. Vance really is kind of like this multifaceted candidate for a VP. And I understand Donald Trump's decision to include him. Also, though, I kind of wanted to analyze him as a person with some of these articles I have pulled up here. So this first one I have here, I'm going to just pull this up. Oh, here's an ad. So J.D. Vance, and speaking of which, we just talked about Hindus here just briefly. And we have another Hindu in this situation here. J.D. Vance feels bad for taking his Hindu wife, Usha, to mass. Interestingly enough, J.D. Vance is also a Catholic. I also have you know that J.D. Vance is considered to be somewhat based because he follows a few questionable Twitter accounts. I don't know if you're aware of this, but he's involved in a few right-wing circles that people have found really interesting, you know, because he is this new phenomenon in American politics. He does have somewhat of an online past. We saw those pictures of him with, you know, in the wig and all that. People said it was kind of weird. I think it's silly. It's whatever. But he does have an online past. He's a millennial. He does kind of have that online footprint, and he's not shying away from it either. He's also a Catholic, a devout Catholic, but his wife isn't. And so what I've been seeing this discourse online happen is that, look, he has this, he should be as a Christian, as a Catholic, as this based conservative element in the right-wing movement today in the United States. Why isn't he leading his wife to Christianity? Isn't he supposed to be, you know, the paragon of spiritual faithfulness in his family unit? I kind of want to explore that topic with you. Also, before I get to the story, I just forgot that I got a few texts here, so I'm going to pull that up right now. I promised you guys I'd read those texts, and I almost failed you, but I will not. So before I get into this, I'm going to read, I had a few texts come my way. Okay, this is from Entropy Nomad. Remember that howsoever you are played or by whom your soul is in your keeping alone, even though those who presume to play you be kings or men of power, when you stand before God, you cannot say, but I was told by others to do thus, or that virtue was not convenient at the time. This will not suffice. Remember that by King Baldwin, Kingdom of Heaven. It's a really interesting quote. Quite a lot to consider there. Thank you for sharing. Here's another one. I know what the Grapers are and who their leader is, but I don't really know why they are bad in your view. Would you mind elaborating on it? Yes, I can elaborate on it. I do have limited time, so I cannot. Don't get me on the Graper train again. You're tempting me here. So, someone just texted about J.D. Vance here as well. So, why they are bad in my view? I don't think the Grapers are a serious movement, to be honest with you. Now, let me explain, okay? Because I know what you're thinking. They are making massive cultural movements in the right wing. I almost said J.D. Vance. Nick Fuentes is making major cultural movements in the United States. He is single-handedly, you can almost argue, shifting the Overton window that we can have certain conversations, right? So we can open up the window and the door to having certain cultural, social, and political conversations. I am not opposed to that, actually. I appreciate free speech. I am a free speech advocate. I am a free speech absolutist. I have no issue with having conversations at all. What I don't like about Grapers is that they are not a serious movement for this reason. Nick Fuentes is not currying the right favorability or the right audience that he needs to be. Although he is a genius in some ways, he's very charismatic. Very good entertainer, and he's very smart, actually. I'm not denying that he's not smart or effective, But I do think that he is a little impulsive. He's a little immature, mainly because usually what occurs with major movement leaders is that what you'll see is that their audience pretty much reflects the person that they are. And more, not always, but in most cases. And from my experience with groypers is that most often than not, they are young men in their early 20s, even younger, late teenage years, that just haven't experienced life as much. And what I think will happen is that once they get laid or marry up, hopefully they marry before getting laid. I just want to point that out. I know Nick Fuentes will agree with me on that, at least I hope. I think they're going to change their perspective and their approach to American politics. And so the foundation in which he settled his ideology upon, his movement on, I just don't think is as strong. I should wait a few years before I really make that assertion. This is just a pattern that I've been seeing. I could be proven wrong. I also have an issue with Christian nationalism on some bases and considerations. I don't think Christian nationalism or even Catholic nationalism, it seems to be what they're advocating for. I also don't think that is a movement that's going to survive for a very long time, at least not in the United States. So that's my main issues with that. My apologies for going so long in that answer, but I do want to answer accurately. Oh my, okay, this person texted me quite a few times. Okay, so this person texted, and this is a very accurate point. Daily Wire is far from Christian nationalist. It's religiously minded, but not in the supremacist crowd. Jeremy Boring is somewhat mildly licentious in his demeanor. See the heavy amount of cleavage on the Jeremy's Razor ads. Also uses the term God King, ironically. I'm not a Jeremy Boring fan, so I can't speak to that, but I'm speaking as a DW Daily Wire subscriber. Also, Jeremy's cursing is too strong to be seriously religious. Look, I'll read the rest. I just want to say, yes, I suppose that Jeremy Boring does swear. I didn't know that. Nick Fuentes swears quite a lot. Listen, I'm just going to say it here. I also think allegedly Nick Fuentes is homosexual. But I still am going to sit here and say I think he's promoting Christian nationalist views. I don't think swearing or having certain sexual inclinations demotes you from being a Christian nationalist insofar as you're promoting those views. It's no question that God is where our rights come from and that America is Protestant based on the Pilgrims who wanted to break free from the Church of England. Yes. And they also wrote Hillbilly Elegy was a Netflix movie. It was as well a Netflix movie. J.D. Vance recently converted to Catholicism. Within a year, he came from a milquetoast Protestant background. Thank you so much for those many texts and the clarifications. I really appreciate that. I'm going to jump into the story. His recent conversion to Catholicism, I'm aware of that, yes. I've been seeing the conversation being had online, though, that people are saying, look, he is a Catholic. He's one of our guys. He needs to lead his wife to the Catholic faith. Why hasn't he been doing that? Let's read this article. So J.D. Vance, VP nominee, talked about converting Catholicism in 2019. So it's been a little more than just a year ago, but he feels bad for dragging his wife to Mass every Sunday. She didn't sign up to marry a weekly churchgoer, but she's more than okay with it, especially as a Hindu. And so I've been seeing a lot of discourse online being had with people saying, look, why is J.D. Vance, why is he such a cuck? He should be able to bring his wife to Mass and really, show her the Christian way, be the real leader in his family. Do you agree with that, by the way? Do you think that that's his role and that he should really push his wife to do that, especially if her heart's not in it? Interfaith or mixed faith relationships are difficult. They are, I haven't been in one, but I've heard of people that were in one, and it is difficult. It's very difficult to do. And I kind of feel for him because you can't force a conversion on your significant other, but at the same time, you do have to stay true to your faith. Vance said that he was raised in Christianity and thought about what sect he wanted to raise his children in. And it looks like that Usha just she's not going to convert here. Should this be a problem for a right-wing magnet like JD Vance. He is kind of like heralding in a way, this new right. He embodies like this new right-wing movement and this new right-wing wave. He's also married to a Hindu. Should conservative Christians, should we tolerate that? I want to ask you, the audience. All right. I also have this other story I want to touch on about JD Vance. See, because I have various thoughts about this. Because on the one hand, if he is going to be like this embody this new right-wing cultural movement, all in and of himself, I do understand where people are coming from. You know, his wife's not Christian. That opens up a lot of conversations, a lot of doors for conversations to be had. You know, why is he tolerating this? Why is the GOP having a member of the Sikh community pray to Waheguru? I've been seeing a lot of issues with that, or a lot of Christian conservatives have issues with that. And I think it's a valid conversation to be had. If America is culturally, not religiously, not spiritually, not faithfully, but if it's culturally a Christian country, should we tolerate that? It's beyond than just tolerating it. You know, we're not saying you can't be a Sikh or a Hindu or a Buddhist or even a Muslim for that matter, but should we be promoting it? That's the question. Okay, before I hop into my interviewee, I'm going to be interviewing Prester John. He has a publication on Substack that we will talk about, and I'll show briefly on the screen. It will be talking about, as a fellow Midwesterner, his views on JD Vance. And we're going to have like a 30-minute conversation about that. I think you'll really enjoy it. I wanted to hear from a Midwesterner about their views from JD Vance as someone who has grown up with a similar background as JD Vance. I want to ask him, what does he feel about JD Vance and JD Vance's evolution in the political sector, and so forth. And I wanted to get his take on it. So I think you're really going to enjoy that interview on my newest segment called the Radioactive Exclusion Zone, where I interview people that some may deem radioactive culturally and socially and politically. If you have anyone that you think that would be interesting to interview, DM me on Twitter at PensacDaniela. I would love to hear your suggestions. So this is just a quick story I want to touch on. It's related to JD Vance. It's related to the topic. But JD Vance's aide, his economic policy aide called Aaron Kofsky, it just came out. He had a Reddit account and he called JD Vance a bootlicker, a Trump bootlicker. And so I want to talk about that. And this guy, it's more so about him than JD Vance. But basically what this article states is that this aide not just called him a bootlicker, but promoted like use of illicit substances, cocaine. He is also a very big enjoyer of gas station heroin, kratom. He talks about how he could smuggle drugs through airport security. This is one of JD Vance's top guys. I think this is really interesting to bring up. But considering JD Vance's considering some of the things that he's talked about in his book Hillbilly Elegy, I read excerpts of it. He does talk about the drug culture and how prolific it is in where he grew up in. And so I wonder if he kind of like took a soft heart to an individual like this. Maybe he had some knowledge of this guy's drug history. I don't know. But this guy's Reddit history, this Aaron dude, is quite prolific as far as it concerns drugs. And so I think JD Vance just did him a solid and hired him. I don't know. But can we be honest here, as fellow libertarians watching the show, why is this story such big news? Especially considering this is just a Reddit guy. He had an anonymous Reddit account where he talked about drugs. And this is apparently major news. I've seen this floating around online everywhere these last couple days. And this is major news because this guy takes kratom, and I guess he took coke he tried coke a few times. Wow. It's not like he did actual heroin. But can we really be honest? And are we going to sit here and claim that no one in DC, or maybe not even, allegedly, not even JD himself, or people like JD Vance have tried coke in DC? Let's be real. You know, I think we can be honest with ourselves and say it's a well-known fact, basically, at this point, that this is not really news, but yet major media is making this sound like this is a big tell-all story that JD Vance's it's not even JD Vance himself. It says economic policy aide that's come out and, pushing a pro-drug culture. Is this really news? Or is it something that we should, as right-wingers within the conservative movement, really take issue with? Look, this guy is supposed to be the paragon of conservative values. He cannot even convert his wife to Christianity, and he's hiring these drug addicts on his staff. What do you think? Or is this just a nothing burger story? Anyway, I'm going to bring on my guest here in the next 5 minutes. I want you to tune in. He is a fellow Midwesterner, and I want to get his take on J.D. Vance and on J.D. Vance's evolution. His name is Prester John. He has a publication. I will be pulling that up, and I will get him on in a minute. So just stay tuned, and we will pull him up here. Thank you.
Well, here comes Daniela like Marilyn with a twist. She's got a master's degree and a style you can't resist. On Culturama, baby, we're shaking up the scene. So hit that like, make it click, you know what we mean. Like and subscribe, come on, don't delay. With Daniela at the helm, we're leading the way. It's Culturama, taking back tomorrow today.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the four olds. Old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So, your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah. Who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
Well, things haven't been so sweet for Ben & Jerry's after the company posted an anti-American tweet, a few of them, on the 4th of July. The ice cream makers declared the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land.
Well, someone should tell Target that, because they're now selling swimsuits with tuckums in the women's section of the store. And they even have a line just for kids.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Ben & Jerry's and ask them how they can live with themselves as they operate a multi-billion-dollar company on stolen land while declaring other people give up their so-called stolen land.
This is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means. We have glad you came out, and I'm so happy that you're queer. In the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence.
Good news! Starbucks will offer its workers reimbursement of travel expenses related to accessing abortion and gender-affirming procedures.
Kyle Rittenhouse was seen wearing a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt, and they wanted to distance themselves from that individual. Key employees at the company also were donating to Democrats. Hafer doubled down on throwing many in his base under the bus, describing them as racist and a repugnant group of people.
Hey, Liberty lovers, stop scrolling, because if you're tired of the same old news, then I've got just the wake-up call for you. I want to thank you for tuning in to Culturama, and I know that you're enjoying every minute of it. Join us at rumble.com/AP4Liberty. The Wake Up America show is Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. It's a great way to start your day. Coffee's optional, but waking up is mandatory. Remember, at Wake Up America, we'll keep you sharp, we'll keep you laughing, most of all, we'll keep you free. I'll see you in the morning.
Well, here comes Daniela like Marilyn with a twist. She's got a master's degree and a style you can't resist. On Culturama, baby, we're shaking up the scene. So hit that like, make it click, you know what we mean. Like and subscribe, come on, don't delay. With Daniela at the helm, we're leading the way. It's Culturama, taking back tomorrow today.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the four olds. Old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So, your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah, who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
Well, things haven't been so sweet.
Hello and welcome to the Radioactive Exclusion Zone, everyone. This is my newest segment where I will be introducing and interviewing political pundits, cultural figures, and so forth that have radioactive opinions. And today I have PJ. He is the writer of, it's called Prester John. His name is Prester John in Substack, and he has a wonderful publication on Substack where he talks about in depth about J.D. Vance and other issues as a fellow Midwesterner. And I kind of wanted to take his opinions about J.D. Vance and issues or positives of his run as VP and in the cultural greater right-wing movement. And I'm just going to call him by PJ here. PJ, could you introduce yourself and kind of give us a brief rundown of who you are, what your publication's about, and we can just jump into the main conversation.
Sure. My name is go by Prester John's Revenge, but you can just call me PJ. I write the Dispatches from the Golden Dawn publication on Substack. And I also have a newly launched Xanadu Review, which is my podcast, released every other week. And yeah, I write about politics, history, culture, tech, esoterica, kind of anything that comes to my mind there. And kind of, I guess, my calling card is I try to be more on the heterodox side. There's aspects of the right wing that I like. There's aspects of the left wing that I like. And I try to find at least something interesting and some kind of middle ground.
And as someone, I love esoterica, so I'm glad that you mentioned that. And I'm definitely going to be showing your publication up on the screen afterwards, after this interview is done. So I want everyone to hang tight until the end of this interview. I'm going to show his publication, look through some of his articles, but I really want to push your stuff because I've read a few of your articles and they are quite substantive, and I took a great pleasure in reading them. But you described yourself as a Midwesterner, is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. I moved around the country and I also lived in Canada a lot growing up, but my biggest early life, I guess you could say, was I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which was, right in the heart of the deindustrialized Midwest.
Very cool. And so you have written about J.D. Vance before. What are your thoughts about J.D. Vance? Like, do you think he's a problematic figure in the right-wing movement, or do you think he's making real strides in the right-wing movement today?
Well, I guess, again, it's somebody more, I guess you could say, on the heterodox side, and there are aspects of the right wing that I like, aspects of the left wing, but there's things about J.D. Vance that definitely excite me, specifically the working class bona fides that he has. And I think that he definitely has a real appeal to the working class, just since he came from that background. I came from a pretty similar background myself. I remember actually did read his book, Hillbilly Elegy. There's a lot that I related to, just growing up in poverty and seeing similar situations. And I think it's kind of, I've heard him described as he's an attempt to have a right-wing Obama, just because he's very well-spoken, he's a handsome gentleman, and he has a very, picturesque, maybe not picturesque is the right word, but a very understandable and relatable background, coming from the deindustrialized Midwest, growing up in poverty. So I think that I can understand why people, particularly in the right wing, kind of latch on to him right now, since, at least in my estimate, coming more from the left originally, seeing how I feel kind of the left has more or less abandoned the working class, and you're seeing, we'll see whether or not they actually follow through with it, the Republicans and the right wing starting to pick up those pieces and become the party of the working class.
Yes, and he certainly does, as you kind of noted on his physiognomy or physiognomy, he does have those piercing blue eyes. I've noticed that a lot of women are talking about how good looking he was after the vice presidential debate with Waltz. Did you happen to watch that at all?
I did. I watched it after the fact. I started to watch it the night before. And I was getting a little bit too mad. My wife just kind of told me, no, you got to stop watching because you're getting too mad. But I watched it the second day. And part of me it was almost refreshing because in some ways it was boring to hear, two people talk who are being actually relatively respectful towards each other. And I say this as somebody who, up until this year, I've been, predominantly somebody who came from like a blue collar, union working class Democrat background. But now seeing J.D. Vance is, this is somebody I can actually understand and relate to. And I think even people I know on the left are saying, wow, J.D. Vance just really cleaned up as far as rhetoric and having a coherent message that's not just my opponent is bad, and really just even like on an aesthetic level, kind of like you mentioned, with the piercing blue eyes and just being much more calm and composed. I just think he just did a better job.
Do you really think he is a hillbilly, like spiritually, naturally in his upbringing, or do you think he's posturing as one? I mean, you read Hillbilly Elegy, I'm presuming in full. I read only excerpts of it, so I don't have a full understanding. But in one of your articles on your Substack, you'd mentioned that you didn't like to admit it, but you do kind of have like that background and the one that he has mentioned in his book, like his upbringing. But you also said that there's parts of the book that you thought were exaggerated. I mean, do you really think he is a hillbilly?
As far as hillbilly specifically, I kind of can't speak to that because hillbilly, my understanding, it's more of like an Appalachian thing. And I grew up in the Midwest, and my other side of the family is from the South, and that's either, hick or redneck. But I think in any of those cases, hillbilly, redneck, hick, these are kind of cultural shorthands, really, when you're trying to get across that somebody's from the working class. And as far as, honestly, as far as I know, I imagine somebody like him at his profile, especially now that he's the vice president, somebody who's running for vice president, if he were completely lying and he grew up in the suburbs, I feel like that would have come out by now. It seems like the fact that he grew up in poverty and had, family members who were drug addicted, that seems to be, pretty true. As far as whether or not he's exaggerating certain parts of it, I mean, I'm sure obviously he is. To me, and again, I didn't grow up in Appalachia. I don't know that. I've never heard anybody who's like self-identified as a hillbilly, be hillbilly, redneck, whatever. It's always kind of a little bit of a nod and a wink sometimes. But that having been said, I do think he is genuine in him talking about the background that he came up from and the perspective that he's coming from. I am a little bit apprehensive whether or not, and I kind of mentioned that we're starting to see the Republicans become potentially the party of the working class, quote unquote, which the Democrats held for a really, really long time. But if you look at overall trends of voting, that working class voters of all ethnicities, if you control for Obama, are trending towards the Republicans, where you see the Democrats, the college educators are trending in that direction. So all that to say, I'm skeptical if the Republicans will actually follow through with it and actually do the protectionist policies that, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are talking about, because, I grew up in an era where, Democrats would talk a big game when it came to the working class, but they would never really follow through. I would really like to see that be the case. And if that is the case, I could easily see myself, starting to vote Republican after, my family, again, like I said, it's generational blue-collar Democrats. So
Okay, yeah. Yeah, of course. So you kind of see like as a positive that what Donald Trump is doing, he's kind of making like this push towards populism, towards the working class. You certainly find it more relatable. I presume your family finds it more relatable as well. Do you think, so I'm assuming then from what I'm hearing is that you think that this is on Donald Trump's part, definitely done in good faith, is that he got JD Vance's, so he's trying to appeal to these people because he does want to promote these policies that are positive towards people like you in the working class in middle America. So it sounds like that you're not entirely like cynical about what Donald Trump is doing or even of JD Vance as a person. Is that accurate?
I wouldn't necessarily say that. I'm a very cynical person in general. Kind of, at least to me, at the end of the day, it matters what a politician actually does and what the policies that they put forth, what they actually do. Whether or not they're being cynical on a personal level doesn't really matter to me as much. Again, we'll see if they're being accurate with that, but it does seem like whether or not they're being cynical and don't really believe it, that is a demographic that is up for grabs right now, and the Republicans would be fools not to take it. So if they get the policies across the door that help the working class as far as housing, protectionism, as far as, I actually, that's something I did agree with Donald Trump with more as far as foreign trade and stuff like that. If they actually does that, it doesn't matter to me, honestly, if they're being sincere or not.
How did you feel about Donald Trump's previous 4 years when he was president? Did you find that his policies were did satiate some of what the middle America is looking for, what the working class is looking for, or were you kind of left after his presidency, were you left a little bit disappointed in what his administration had accomplished?
Well, at the time, I wasn't really a fan of Donald Trump when he came out. I think there was a lot of hysteria from the cultural left or the media class. But that having been said, I think it's kind of, I've said this to people before who I'm friends with on the left, my biggest defense of Donald Trump to them is my biggest critique to him on the right, that ultimately Donald Trump was a pretty standard neocon Republican as far as I'm concerned. He did do some things that were really good. There's no denying the economy was better. Whether or not that would have happened if he was president or not is up for debate. But I think he did do a lot of good things. But ultimately, to me, his first term, he was kind of just in the same ilk as George W. Bush or some of these other more traditional neocon Republicans. But to this day, I still don't really care for. But I am a little bit more hopeful of potentially a second term, just seeing some of the people that he's putting in his cabinet and some of the people that he's talking to.
Okay, that's fair enough. A really good answer there. I did want to ask you about JD Vance, and do you think he felt, because as far as I'm aware, he expressed in Hillbilly Elegy, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but he expressed his alienation with the Ivy League. Do you really think that was a real experience for him, or do you think that he was kind of just saying that in the book for the readers? Perhaps he really did feel alienated with the Ivy League. What do you think about that?
Well, that's something I definitely can speak to. I didn't go to an Ivy League school, but I actually didn't go to college at all. But I do work in the tech world. Yes. And I'm self-taught in that regard. I taught myself the different skills that I needed. That having been said, there's definitely a large amount of alienation there. I feel like I've talked to other people who've had similar experiences, and it's a very judgmental world. And sometimes there's a lot of talk, and especially in the tech world, this is probably where the quote-unquote DEI thing is the strongest. People like to talk a big game about being inclusive, but it's really only inclusive in a very narrow percentage of the population. And even for that, I guess you could say a specific story or narrative that might come with that. And that's something I definitely experienced. It's something I wrote about before, and I'm writing a part 2 to the article that you discussed specifically that touches on my time in tech, and how really closed-minded and in some ways bigoted people in that world can be, even though they see themselves as being open-minded.
Yeah, I was really curious about that, and also I read that you had experience in the tech industry, so I was curious on your perspective on that. I did want to touch on, since we are kind of reaching the end of our time limit, but you are familiar with, from what I've read, Peter Thiel. How do you, and as I understand, JD Vance has had connections with Peter Thiel in the greater tech industry. He was also heavily influenced, or from what I understand, influenced by people like Curtis Yarvin, who has also had his fingers in the tech industry and in Silicon Valley. What do you feel about that? I mean, do you think that's a really good connection for someone like JD Vance to have, especially in creating greater strides and greater waves in the right-wing movement in America, or just culturally in America? What do you think about that?
Sure. And forgive me, it's been a little bit since I originally read it, but it calls to mind, Peter Thiel wrote a little while back, I think it was over a decade ago at this point, The Straussian Moment, where he described this kind of changing of the guard, where that old liberal order is kind of coming to the end of its like cultural and political purchasing power, and it does seem like we're starting to see the end of that old, liberal world order, and we're going to need something to replace it with. And this is, and again, it's very interesting to me because, and again, coming more from the left originally, I remember, reading, he since walked it back, but Bernie Sanders has a quote about how, open borders are a Koch brothers scheme. And it was interesting for me to see how culturally and politically the right and left kind of switched policies on that, really. And I'm starting to see, I don't know if you've heard about, the term the PayPal mafia, people like Peter Thiel,
yeah.
Elon Musk, people of that ilk, who seem to think, maybe this, they think that globalism is kind of on the decline, and we're going to be seeing a more multipolar world where you're seeing more localism, and it seems like they're trying to get ahead of that. And as somebody who traditionally came from like the blue-collar working class left, if the right wing is the ones who are supporting that now, with trying to have more reshoring and American manufacturing, with which, to their credit, both Joe Biden and Donald Trump made headway on. If that's the case that we're going to see, and we see more American manufacturing and more, just in general, maybe a more protectionist side on the border, not completely closing them down, but having border policy that makes sense. I guess to me that's a good thing, and if they actually follow through on that, because again, I'm a very cynical person, I assume any politician is lying until proven otherwise. But if we do see, Peter Thiel, Curtis Yarvin, and his ilk starting to push that through, I'm not going to turn my nose up at something that's going to benefit me. And just to close a little bit more, I've read a little bit of Curtis Yarvin. I agree with some of it. I disagree with other parts, obviously. But the idea of having, he kind of touches on Italian elite theory, and if you have somebody like not Curtis Yarvin, somebody like JD Vance, who seems to be a little bit more ideological and, let's be real, like mentally coherent, more so than Donald Trump.
Yes.
If somebody can take the base and the movement that he created and use that to become, a little bit more America first, in the sense that it's for the American people, all American people, I only see that as a boon.
Very well said, yes. And I agree with you. There are parts of Curtis Yarvin that you just can't help but agree with. Obviously, he's a very contentious figure, but I have been seeing him kind of come up and crop up in right-wing discussion. I was interested to see that JD Vance actually was inspired by him in some ways. But that's a really good end that you made there. And I also want to note that you're right about this like capture from people, or this institutional capture that you see from people like Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, these major players that are somewhat single-handedly shifting this the current zeitgeist of the era, right, from globalization and globalized communication methods towards something that what you've described as more localized. And this is just a new movement, zeitgeist, collective understanding of how we can communicate with one another, interact with one another, and it'll be really exciting to see what's going to happen with that. I will have to cut it off here, but I want to thank you so much, PJ, for coming on this show on our first interview here on Radioactive Exclusion Zone. I want you just to be able to plug yourself before we leave, and after you leave, I will show your Substack publication for my viewers. But could you just plug yourself one last time before we sign off here?
Sure. Yeah, and again, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. And I'm Prester John's Revenge. That's where you'll find me on Substack. I write the blog Dispatches from the Golden Horde, and also do the podcast, the Xanadu Review, and I have a new episode this Monday. So go ahead and check it out. If you like what you heard today, go ahead and give me a listen and share it with your friends.
Thank you so much, PJ. I will show your publication here. That was PJ, everyone. I hope you have a good evening, sir. I'm going to pull up his... Oh, let me see here. There we go. I'm going to pull up his publication for you guys to look at before we go on commercial break. But here it is. This is called... It's at Prester John's Revenge. And this is the publication that I was talking about, Dispatches from the Golden Horde. And I have read a few articles here. I was more interested in what he had to say about J.D. Vance, but he does touch on a lot, as you can tell, the Yacubian ape. If you guys don't know what that is, you can look up who Yacub is. But he touches on a lot of various social, cultural, political topics, and also more esoterica, which I also write about on my Substack, and I have a deep appreciation for. So we have a lot of interesting stuff here. This is more the article that I was citing, the working class dropout. But Dispatches from the Golden Horde, go subscribe on his Substack. And if you don't have a Substack, what are you doing? Substack is like the new Twitter for high IQ, human elite capital individuals. Anyway, Dispatches from the Golden Horde, please go subscribe to his publication. Also, I am going to go on a quick commercial break here. I want to reiterate, if you want to text the show, if you want me to read your texts in the next segment, I will be reading your texts. That is at 573-416-0635. Again, 573-416-0635. I will love to read your texts. I will do my best to do so. Also, let me check Rumble here. I have a couple Rumble rants here. $2, Nelson65 said, doing great, Daniela. Thank you so much, Nelson. And then we have Robbie Thurman, 7 minutes ago. Let me look at this. This is a $20 one. How do I open that? This is my first time on Rumble, but I'm just gonna, it says here, he is sorry that he is late, had a senior moment, get off my lawn. That's all right, Robbie. Thank you so much for joining the stream. I'm going to be coming back with a few more topics here. We have had transgenders, biological men, go on Victoria's Secret in their New York runway. I'm going to be talking on that and the death of the ideal feminine mystique, the death of the feminine beauty. I'm going to be talking about that and other topics, so stick right there. Don't go anywhere. Text the show if you want to text the show, and if you want me to read your texts. Also, please buy some merchandise from us at the4libertyshop.com. I will be putting that on the panel here for you to look at. Also, just follow us on Locals. You can just make a one-time donation or a consecutive donation as little as $5. We'd love you. We'd love it. We'd love you if you donate to the show. That is at the4libertynetwork.com. That can be found in the description of this video once it's posted as well, that entire link, but it's at the4libertynetwork.com. Please donate, consider supporting the show, or just send a Rumble rant. Thank you so much, and I will see you in a moment.
We were towns with friendly neon signs. We were living in this simple times, leaving partnerships, praises, schemes benign. In our hearts we long to rewind.
Oh, the past was where the love belonged, singing our nostalgic song in a world that felt so right and true, without progressives to misconstrue.
In the heart they gather strong, pushing back the lefty's throng. With the red banner held high, marching forward through the night. Promises of old will keep as the donkeys start to weep. Stars and stripes forever sway, in the land of the brave we stay. We've got the power now, in the heart of every town. We've got the power now, the Reds are going down.
With the flagpole planted firm,
golden dreams that won't decay,
marching proudly through the day.
In the eagle's shadow by, we find our strength and take our pride. Let the voices echo loud, tearing through the waiting crowd. We've got the power now, in the heart of every town. We've got the power now, the Reds are going down. Across the plains and mountains tall, hear the victory call. With courage and with might we strive in the light of freedom's guide. We got the power now, in the heart of every town. We've got the power now, the Reds are going down.
Well, here comes Anita like Marilyn with a twist. She's got a master's degree and a style you can't resist. On Culturama, baby, we're shaking up the scene. So hit that like, make it click, you know what we mean. Like and subscribe, come on, don't delay. With Daniela at the helm, we're leading the way. It's Culturama, taking back tomorrow today.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the four olds. Old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So, your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah, who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
Well, things haven't been so sweet for Ben & Jerry's after the company posted an anti-American tweet, a few of them, on the 4th of July. The ice cream makers declared the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land.
Well, someone should tell Target that, because they're now selling swimsuits with tuckums in the women's section of the store. And they even have a line just for kids.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Ben & Jerry's and ask them how they can live with themselves as they operate a multi-billion-dollar company on stolen land while declaring other people give up their so-called stolen land.
This is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means. We have glad you came out, and I'm so happy that you're queer. In the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence.
Good news! Starbucks will offer its workers reimbursement of travel expenses related to accessing abortion and gender-affirming procedures.
Kyle Rittenhouse was seen wearing a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt, and they wanted to distance themselves from that individual. Key employees at the company also were donating to Democrats. Hafer doubled down on throwing many in his base under the bus, describing them as racist and a repugnant group of people.
Liberty lovers, stop scrolling, because if you're tired of the same old news, then I've got just the wake-up call for you. I want to thank you for tuning in to Culturama, and I know that you're enjoying every minute of it. Join us at rumble.com/AP4Liberty. The Wake Up America show is Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. It's a great way to start your day. Coffee's optional, but waking up is mandatory. Remember, at Wake Up America, we'll keep you sharp, we'll keep you laughing, most of all, we'll keep you free. I'll see you in the morning.
Hello and welcome to Culturama, where here we are trying to reclaim the zeitgeist of traditional Americana back into the United States. And we just had a whole host of topics that we've talked about. We talked about quite extensively about J.D. Vance, Christian nationalism, Grapers, Catholicism, and we have quite a bit more in these last 30 minutes, half hour of the show. I did get a few texts come in. I do want to say I have a special gift for you. If we can get $40 in Rumble donations, I'm going to do something special for you. So I'm not going to say what it is, but I will do it, and I think you will enjoy it. It's just a little special gift I'm going to give everyone here on camera. If we can just get, I'm going to lowball it because it's like my second episode, $40 donation on Rumble Rants. Please donate so we can get this show launched successfully. I'm going to read this text right here. So I think I just got one text during this break. This person wrote, "It's shocking how many conservative Hindus are in the GOP. I'm an Indian Orthodox Christian, Oriental Orthodox, and I'm a black sheep ideologically. This person has been texting me quite frequently on this show, and I do appreciate your input. I suppose that does make you a black sheep ideologically, but I've been seeing a lot of East Indians come into the right-wing movement and the conservative movement here in the United States. I don't think you're that much of a black sheep, I assure you, even if you are a Christian. And I think what your faith and what you are doing by even watching this show shows that you are quite well informed and doing the right thing. I'm just going to quickly look at some of the Rumble chats. I was looking at some of the Rumble chats during the break, and I do want to look into them and just respond to some of your guys' questions, input. I see here that also I put the live chat on the screen so you guys can look at each other's live chats here. It looks like someone did ask me about my background, and I would be more than happy to discuss that with you. You see, this behind me is a bust of Artemis, actually. I enjoy Artemis very much. She is the Greek goddess of the hunt, of chastity, and I actually write about her quite frequently on my Twitter, so that's kind of like some esoteric symbolism behind me. And as you can see, the light behind me is the moon. The moon is her symbol. And they also asked about my painting. I forgot the name of this painting, but it's a painting of a woman with a ferret. It's a painting of a woman with a ferret. I forgot the name of it. I will find it when I can afterwards, but it reminds me of myself because I have a little dog, and it's just a woman with a pet. So I just thought that was a fun, cute little painting. If you guys have any ideas on what else I can put on my background, feel free to text the line 573-416-0635 if you have any more ideas about what I should put in my background. Please don't say American flag, okay? I want it to be, the American flag is tasteful, but I want more art. So if you have any ideas of art, no Gadsden flag, no American flag. If you don't, I do own both flags, by the way. It's right there in the corner. I just didn't want it in the background. I own both flags. I'm not putting it on the background. So I'm not, if you ask me, don't expect me to put it up. Okay. Let me check if I got any Rumble rants before we move on. Okay, not yet. Remember, if we do have $40 in donations on Rumble Rants, I will be doing a cute little surprise at the end. I think you'll enjoy it. Anyway, let me get back to regular scheduled programming here. We just have a few more topics to cover before I wrap the show up. But there is this cute little story. I said I'll talk about transgenders in Victoria's Secret, and I will talk about that. But I wanted to talk about this actually here in a second. Bear with me here. Hold on a second. Everyone, this is my second episode, okay? I have never streamed before this, so please just bear with me, all right? Here we go. Found it. We got her locked in. Okay. So here we go. So I found this tweet. I think it's pretty interesting and worthy of discussing before we move on to the transgender story. This Twitter account, Alaric the Barbarian, actually wonderful Twitter account. I suggest you go and follow it if you're interested in like alternative media. He runs a Dissident Review publication that I have my work published in. It's like an alternative academic journal, but he posted this at the Philadelphia airport, not an official poll, but a good indication. This kind of reminds me of those like very famous cookie polls that we've been having. But as you can see here, I'm just going to click on the picture. You see two types of chocolate bars here. Now, I cannot zoom in and check whether or not these are like of a certain flavor or if they have, one has nuts and one doesn't. I'm assuming, and I've seen these type of chocolate bars in airports before, so I'm assuming that these are just basic chocolate both ways. Both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump is just milk chocolate. If there's two of each, I'm assuming one is milk chocolate, one's dark. Basically, the point I'm laboriously trying to get at here is that I don't think people bought more the Donald Trump because that one was a particular flavor over Kamala Harris's. I've actually been to the Philadelphia airport. I've been to multiple airports. I've seen stuff like this. They're usually the exact same chocolate, okay? So that being said, oh, there's animal crackers in the background. I love animal crackers. That's great. As you can see, Donald Trump is selling far more chocolate bars. Is this an accurate depiction of what the election is going to look like? Not necessarily, but I think it's a really big green flag as someone that will be voting for Donald Trump. Am I doing that? Does he have my full-throated support? I wouldn't say that necessarily, but I think it's a necessary vote to do in this election season. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it at that. Anyways, I just thought that was a neat little green flag right there. You're black. I love this. You're black pilling? Trump is winning the Philly airport chocolate bar poll and you're black pilling? Anyway, I think that's just a fun, neat little topic here. Okay. Transgender models featured in the Victoria's Secret fashion show. So here are the names. Here are these individuals: Valentina Sampaio and Alex Consani. I know Alex is both. It's like a unigender term, unisex term. It, for some reason, it doesn't feel like they're trying here. But anyway, Alex Consani made history at the iconic fashion show, which returned after Tuesday after a 6-year hiatus. Now, these are the picture of the two transgender individuals here. To me, they look like men. But essentially, what happened is that just this last Tuesday, Victoria's Secret, the brand Victoria's Secret, had their fashion show on the New York runway. And I just want you to envision what comes to your mind when I say the word Victoria's Secret or the branding. Victoria's Secret is known for having voluptuous, curvy models that resemble the feminine ideal or the feminine form, okay? And so when I saw this, I was a bit disappointed, as with many others I've seen on Twitter and elsewhere online, because, because what I find quite concerning here is that, what I find concerning here is that Victoria's Secret is known to kind of herald this view of the feminine ideal, form, that I will say humanity has evolved to represent and evolved to embody all throughout the course of human history. And we had these idealized versions of masculinity and femininity, right? And so what happens, and what you'll come to find, is that especially with the progressive movement these days, with the induction of the woke ideology and the woke agenda and critical theory, postmodernism, cultural and social cynicism, what you'll see is that they're trying to conflate the ideal masculine and the ideal feminine. I know this is rather abstract, but I really want to hone this in because I think it's important. Because I think what is going on here with Victoria's Secret, with this campaign that they're doing, it wasn't a campaign per se, they just threw those models in there. But it is, in a way, a campaign because it's ideologically driven. when Victoria's Secret introduced these two models in their fashion show, what happened is that they launched an ideological campaign, because what they're trying to do is that they're trying to subvert our notions of what the idealized feminine is and what idealized beauty is by introducing these biological males. So no longer is Victoria's Secret really encapsulating like the feminine ideal, because that's what it was known for, okay? Major, like big fashion, large scale fashion, major runways all throughout the last 60 or so years, as we are familiar. They kind of had like these anorexic looking skinny models. They're supposed to model the clothes, not their bodies, right? What Victoria's Secret has done differently since the launch of its brand is that purposefully got women that actually had these idealized forms of the feminine beauty and the feminine ideal. And what they embodied was a feminine ideal. And so for Victoria's Secret to introduce like these, they look masculine to me, basically biological males. It's really unfortunate. And one of the quotes, I don't have the scene pulled up here, but one of the quotes that one of the models had stated was, they had said, actually, let me pull up the article right here. Hang on, bear with me. So here are the models. One of them had this quote, where was it? Yes, this quote right here. The Victoria's Secret family has shown the world that being trans is just as exceptional and beautiful as everyone else on the runway. Now, is it exceptional? Yes. I believe the statistic is, and I could be wrong, but last I checked, it was like 0.23% of individuals are actually born with gender dysphoria. So yes, it is quite rather exceptional that they are, if they are really transgender. But is it beautiful? And I want to ask you this to the audience. Is it actually beautiful? Is it beautiful that the subversive demoralization campaign that is being done here, is it beautiful that they're conflating masculinity, biological masculinity, with femininity, with what Victoria's Secret as a brand has been embodying and promoting culturally for however long it was running? They're conflating the two. Now, it's one thing if we have a conversation about our cultural expectations and our cultural ideations of what the feminine ideal should be. For instance, we had like the heroin chic was like the 90s, more of the like, and I'm talking about physical body here, women of more slim stature were considered more sexually attractive and appealing, as opposed to the 1950s and 60s when it was more curvaceous with Marilyn Monroe and so forth. That's a different conversation, because we are still talking about biological females. Whoops, sorry about that. We are still talking about biological females here. But we have entered an era where being biologically female doesn't matter anymore. Now, anyone can be feminine. I guess these individuals kind of do look like the 90s, early 2000s heroin chic. They are rather skinny, but this is not what comes to mind when I think of a Victoria's Secret model. When I think of a Victoria's Secret model, I think of someone that is classically beautiful. A woman's woman, if you know what I mean. Someone that's a little bit more buxom, if you get what I'm saying here, okay? So at any rate, this is a picture of one of the models. And, oh, there's a video. I want to see if I can play it. That's a transgender model. So the face is done well, I think. The face looked better in the video than in the picture, but I don't know, it does have that masculine body type. I want to hear your thoughts on Rumble and Rumble Rants. Send me a Rumble Rant as well, or send me a text at 573-416-0635 on what you think about this story. And if you think, am I just being crazy here? Am I being schizo in my analysis of this? I've actually written an article on it. Am I being schizo, or do I have something valid to say here? Are they trying to subvert our expectations and our notions of what femininity actually is by doing this? I did write an article here. Oh, that's not the article. This one is. Beauty is dead and we have killed her. I'm going to do a shameless plug here on my Substack called The Dialectic Project. But I did write about this quite extensively because I do write about how we do have this demoralization campaign occur since what I think was popularized with, was it Caitlyn Jenner? The transgender that came out. It was Bruce Jenner originally. I think they changed their name to Caitlyn Jenner, if I'm not mistaken. But I could be completely wrong there. I'm blanking out. But anyway, Bruce Jenner's transition is when I started becoming more socially aware of this phenomenon. And what we have seen is that since then, I have been seeing campaign after campaign after campaign of these individuals come in and say, this is a new look of femininity here in the United States. And I take a little umbrage with that. I did want to read this quote here by Homer. But Aphrodite spoke and loosened from her bosom the embroidered girdle of many colors into which of her allurements were fashioned. In it was love, and in it desire, and in it blandishing persuasion, which steals the mind of even the wise. This, Aphrodite, basically the embodiment of the feminine ideal. This is what the feminine ideal is about. It's about being beautiful. It's about being sexy. It's about embodying the conceptualization, the utmost conceptualization of what femininity is. And that is, I think, the main foundational element of that starts at being biologically female, because there are differences in our idealized forms of these beings, whether you're masculine or feminine. This is getting a little too abstract here, so I will be right back to close off the show with a few more stories, but I did want to touch on this one because I think it is very culturally relevant. And as someone that's not necessarily like into fashion shows myself, I know it's surprising, right? I do like fashion. I don't really get the fashion show scene, but I did come across this story and I think that it was relevant to talk about. So I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Again, if you want to text the show, please text it at 573-416-0635. Also, follow us on Locals. Let me change the scene here. Please follow us on Locals, where you can make a one-time donation or a consecutive donation to have the show up and running and fully launched. We are obviously, still dealing with a few growing pains as this show goes along, but we are doing our best to grow it. Also, send us a Rumble rant. I would love to hear your thoughts since I can't get to everyone on time in the live chat or on other various platforms. The Rumble rant is the best way for me to look at your message. And also buy some merch on the the For Liberty shop. It used to be the AP For Liberty shop. Now it's the forlibertyshop.com. I will put that on the panel here in a moment. Send us your donations. And if we hit that $40 mark, I will do a very fun surprise. Otherwise, just stay in there and we shall be right back.
Well, here comes Daniela like Marilyn with a twist. She's got a master's degree and a style you can't resist. On Culturama, baby, we're shaking up the scene. So hit that like, make it click, you know what we mean. Like and subscribe, come on, don't delay. With Daniela at the helm, we're leading the way. It's Culturama, taking back tomorrow today.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the four olds. Old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So, your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah. Who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
Well, things haven't been so sweet for Ben & Jerry's after the company posted an anti-American tweet, a few of them, on the 4th of July. The ice cream makers declared the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land.
Well, someone should tell Target that because they're now selling swimsuits with tuckums in the women's section of the store. And they even have a line just for kids.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Ben & Jerry's and ask them how they can live with themselves as they operate a multi-billion-dollar company on stolen land while declaring other people give up their so-called stolen land.
This is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means. We have glad you came out, and I'm so happy that you're queer. In the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence.
Good news! Starbucks will offer its workers reimbursement of travel expenses related to accessing abortion and gender-affirming procedures.
Kyle Rittenhouse was seen wearing a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt, and they wanted to distance themselves from that individual. Key employees at the company also were donating to Democrats. Hafer doubled down on throwing many in his base under the bus, describing them as racist and a repugnant group of people.
Hey, Liberty lovers, stop scrolling, because if you're tired of the same old news, then I've got just the wake-up call for you. I want to thank you for tuning in to Culturama, and I know that you're enjoying every minute of it. Join us at rumble.com/AP4Liberty. The Wake Up America show is Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. It's a great way to start your day. Coffee's optional, but waking up is mandatory. Remember, at Wake Up America, we'll keep you sharp, we'll keep you laughing, most of all, we'll keep you free. I'll see you in the morning.
Hello and welcome to Culturama, where we are taking back the zeitgeist. We are reclaiming the zeitgeist culturally, politically, and socially in the United States today. So I told the chat in Rumble that if I get over $40 donation, I lowballed it because I really want to do this thing for you guys. I said I'd do something very special for you. Some of you may find it appealing, some may find it rather questionable, but I'm going to do it and I think you're going to enjoy it. So here I go. Now, let me first read the chats. Let me open this up right here, and I'm going to read them off before I talk about this segment. I may go a little over the end time, but I'm sure most of you guys will tune in for this. So, 15 minutes ago, $10 donated by Dad Bod Baboon. Thank you, Dad Bod Baboon. Here's more. Dogs playing poker. You're doing fine. Keep in mind, everyone here knows you from elsewhere, so no need to be nervous. Thank you so much. That is very appreciated. Also from Dad Bod. Here's a bit toward the show. Keep up the good work. Also, how about dogs playing pool in the background? I may be reading these backwards. Dogs playing pool in the background. That's a very good suggestion. Actually, I love that painting. If I happen to find it in like Marshalls or something, I may just put that up there, or I could just order it online. I don't know if that will fit the aesthetic of the show, but I'm definitely going to consider it since I am a fellow dog lover myself here. $20 from Entropy Nomad. Thank you for the show. It's great having a space for fun conversations, here to build a community. Thank you so much. And I think that we have hit our limit here. I read the other two donations from Nelson65 and Robbie Thurman. So I just want to open up by saying that I am always someone that wanted to be a food reviewer. I love food. I love eating, I love food, I love fast food, I love well-done food, I love homemade food. And I have come across this tweet. Here we go. This tweet this person has made called Officer Friendly. He is a fellow friend, I'm sure, but he posted a picture of a Big Mac, right? This is just a couple nights ago, and he said winner. And it really made me think because, yes, the Big Mac is one of the most... It embodies America, Americana. It embodies the American spirit of ingenuity and innovation, right? And it really got me thinking about the meaning of the Big Mac. And so this is what I wrote about it, because I'm a pretty philosophical person. I also like theology as well. I think deeply about things. I don't know if you could have told that by now on this show, but I like to think deeply about things. And sometimes that just conflates to food. I guess I was hungry when I wrote this, but I want to read you this tweet right here. The Big Mac is a beautiful concept. This is very serious. I want you to pay attention. The Big Mac is a beautiful concept, because it is essentially a synthesis of two occurrences taking place. We have some Hegelianism thrown in here, okay? So just bear with me. A physical space in one setting. For instance, you see that there are 3 pieces of bread in the Big Mac. So it's not exactly one burger. However, upon initial inspection, you are led to believe that it is 2 separate burgers, but it is in fact not. With the inclusion of 3 slices of bread, what you have is a strange phenomenon where it's neither 2 burgers nor 1 burger, but instead a process of unification, of merging of 2 burgers into 1. It is almost as if you have created a trinity, so to speak, in the material world, in one burger form. Theologians used to contemplate how to recreate this phenomenon in the material world and the mechanical nature of the trinity in the material world. And I think McDonald's really nailed this one. And it really got me thinking about the material nature of the Big Mac, because we have been trying to recreate the Trinity in the physical world for quite some time now in theological and philosophical circles. And when I saw this picture, it just kind of clicked to me like, yes, this is the Trinity in real form. And I don't mean that in a sacrilegious way. I just mean conceptually, theologians have really mustered up mustered up all their intellectual and conceptual abilities to really do this. To how to manifest a Trinity in the physical form. And what we have seen is that in the creation of the Big Mac, that has happened. And it's an American invention. I think that's amazing. And so what I have here with me today for all of you is the Big Mac right here. And I'm going to eat it on screen before I sign off. I did not have dinner yet. So this is what I'm going to do for you. Here's a Big Mac with cheese. I've only eaten a few of these in my life, but I do love the Big Mac. So here I go, going in. That is so good. I want to thank you for tuning in today's show on Culturama. We have talked about J.D. Vance. We have talked about the death of beauty in America. And we have talked about Christian nationalism and the introduction of other faiths in the right-wing movement. And I just want you to consider some of the things we've talked about and how we can maintain the true spirit of Americana, of American ingenuity and American innovation back into the United States. I really hope, I don't want to eat on stream here. I really hope that I will see you tune in next week on Tuesday for Culturama, where we are working to reclaim the zeitgeist, where we are working to reclaim the traditional spirit of Americana back into the United States and into the American people. Tune in next week, and I'd love to see you there. Thank you so much. And I am going to sign off right here without screwing up. So thank you.
Well, here comes Anita like Marilyn with a twist. She's got a master's degree and a style you can't resist. On Culturama, baby, we're shaking up the scene. So hit that like, make it click, you know what we mean. Like and subscribe, come on, don't delay. With Daniela at the helm, we're leading the way. It's Culturama, taking back tomorrow today.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the 4 olds. Old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So,